He sent me a message. Dad, I know you bought us a house, but my mother-in-law said you won't be here for Thanksgiving. I replied with one word, fine. That night, I stopped being someone who could be milked for every last penny. The next morning, I took the house back. Then I took back everything I had ever given them, and I took my final step, from which they still cannot recover. No one expected that the quiet, always helpful dad was capable of such a thing, especially them. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The leather folder sat on my passenger seat like a trophy. I'd just walked out of the notary's office on Central Avenue, documents signed and sealed, $485,000 worth of generosity, compressed into 20 pages of legal text. My house, well, formerly mine. Now Michael and Jennifer's, or would be once the 30-day waiting period passed. The biggest gift I'd ever given anyone. I drove north on the I-10, hands loose on the wheel, windows cracked to let in the November air. Phoenix looked clean that afternoon, the sky that impossible blue you only get in Arizona autumn. I'd spent 5 years saving for this moment, 5 years of eating frozen dinners instead of steaks, driving this same pickup truck instead of trading up, skipping the fishing trips to Alaska I'd promised myself after selling my construction company. Every dollar had gone toward one goal, giving my son a real start, something solid beneath his feet. The Whole Foods on Camelback Road wasn't my usual stop. Too expensive, too crowded with people buying organic kale they'd photographed before eating. But this was Thanksgiving, and I wanted quality ingredients. I'd planned the menu for weeks. Herb-roasted turkey, my mother's cornbread stuffing, those honey-glazed carrots Jennifer mentioned liking 3 years ago. I'd even written it down so I wouldn't forget. The produce section smelled like rain and earth. I stood comparing yams when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Michael's name on the screen made me smile. Maybe he wanted to confirm what time I should arrive Thursday. Maybe Jennifer had special requests for sides. I read the message once, then again, then a third time, waiting for the words to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Dad, I know you just bought us the house, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you coming to Thanksgiving dinner. Jennifer thinks it's better this way. We'll see you another time. My thumb hovered over the screen. Around me, families loaded carts with ingredients for their own gatherings. A man debated turkey sizes with his wife. 2 kids argued over which pie filling their grandmother preferred. Normal people preparing for normal holidays with people who wanted them there. I typed, after everything I've done, the house I just signed over, you're choosing her mother over your own father. Deleted it. Typed, I deserve better than this. Deleted it. Typed, we need to talk. Deleted that too. The phone felt slick in my palm. I'd paid for Michael's wedding 5 years ago, $35,000 for a ceremony Jennifer's parents couldn't afford but insisted upon. Paid for the honeymoon to Bali. Loaned him $15,000 for a car he promised to repay in 6 months. That was 3 years ago. Covered $8,000 in credit card debt he'd called a temporary rough patch. Bought $12,000 worth of furniture when they moved into their rental apartment because Jennifer wanted everything new, nothing from thrift stores or my garage. And now Patricia, a woman I'd never met, didn't want me at dinner in the house I'd just purchased for her daughter. Excuse me, dear, are you all right? You look pale. An elderly woman stood beside me, concern creasing her face. Her cart overflowed with ingredients for a feast. Family photos decorated her phone case. Fine, I said. My voice sounded mechanical, borrowed from someone else. Just remembered something. I looked at my phone again. The cursor blinked in the empty message field, waiting for wisdom I didn't have. Instead, I typed one word. Okay. Sent it. The shopping cart sat abandoned where I'd left it. Yams and fresh herbs already chosen, already worthless. I walked through the automatic doors into the parking lot. The afternoon sun hit different now. Too bright, too indifferent. Inside my truck, I placed the leather folder on the dashboard. 20 pages. 5 years of sacrifice. 1 text message. My hands found the steering wheel, gripped it. The screen protector cracked slightly at the corner. I hadn't realized I'd been squeezing the phone that hard. The fracture spread like a frozen river, small and contained but permanent. I sat there 15 minutes, maybe 20. Time moved strangely, thick and resistant. Other shoppers loaded bags, drove away, returned, loaded more. Through the windshield, I could see people inside the store, pushing carts, picking through produce, planning holidays with families who wanted them. The phone buzzed again, Michael calling. I watched his name pulse on the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. Then fade to a missed call notification. He'd call again. They always did when they needed something. I started the engine but didn't shift into gear. Just sat there with the idle rumbling beneath me, staring at that leather folder. Inside were documents transferring ownership of a house, bought with retirement money, pension funds, the profits from a business I'd built from nothing over 30 years. All of it wrapped up and handed over to a son who couldn't even fight his wife's mother for one dinner invitation. Another time, he'd written. Not even an apology. Not even his own words, Jennifer thinks. When had Michael stopped thinking for himself? When had my opinion become less important than Patricia's? A woman whose face I'd never seen, whose voice I'd never heard, who nevertheless held enough power to erase me from a holiday in my own house. Not my house anymore. That was the point, wasn't it? I'd given it away, signed the papers. 30-day waiting period before the transfer completed, but the intent was clear, the gesture made. I'd played the generous father, the supportive dad, the walking ATM that produced funds whenever Michael texted about situations or rough patches or temporary helps. How many temporary helps add up to permanent resentment? I shifted into reverse, then stopped. My hand found the glove compartment, pulled out the folder again. I opened it, scanned the first page. Legal language, dense and specific. The notary's voice echoed in my memory. 30-day completion window, standard for property transfers of this magnitude, revocable under certain conditions. I'd barely listened then, too focused on the triumph of generosity, the pride of providing. Now those words meant something different. 30 days, revocable. I closed the folder, placed it back on the dashboard, and shifted into drive. The truck rolled forward through the parking lot, past the Whole Foods where I'd planned to buy ingredients for a family meal I'd never cook, past the shoppers who'd never know how quickly gratitude could curdle into something else. I had thinking to do. The house stayed dark, except for my office. I'd always kept good records, a habit from running gray construction for 30 years, when tracking every expense meant the difference between profit and bankruptcy. Now those same files sat spread across my desk like evidence at a trial. Bank statements, canceled checks, screenshots of text messages where Michael asked for help, always phrased carefully, "Dad, hate to ask, but..." or just until the next paycheck. Or Jennifer's really stressed about money. I'd started at 11 that night, too wired to sleep, and worked backward chronologically. The pattern emerged quickly. Each time I'd helped, and I'd helped often, the calls grew less frequent, the visits shorter, the excuses more creative. June 2018, paid $8,000 toward their credit card debt. Michael called twice that month, then went 6 weeks without contact. September 2019, bought $12,000 worth of furniture for their apartment. Thanksgiving that year lasted 90 minutes before Jennifer mentioned her mother's dinner party they needed to attend. February 2021, covered $5,500 in medical bills after Jennifer's appendectomy. Michael forgot my birthday 3 weeks later. April 2023, loaned $15,000 for a car. Still waiting on the first payment. The numbers accumulated into something obscene. I pulled out my calculator, old school, the kind with the paper tape, and ran the total. $230,000. Give or take a few thousand for cash I couldn't document. Dinners I'd paid for, smaller helps that didn't warrant check writing. $250,000, and I'd been uninvited from Thanksgiving. I opened the house transfer documents again, reading carefully this time. The notary had explained the 30-day completion window, but I'd been too proud to pay attention, too satisfied with my own generosity. Now I read every clause, every condition, every loophole. Transfer of property ownership shall be considered complete upon expiration of 30 days from date of signing, provided no material change in circumstances occurs that would invalidate the donative intent. Material change in circumstances. I read the phrase 3 times, looked up the legal definition on my laptop, Found case law from Arizona courts about revoked gifts. The precedents were clear. If a recipient demonstrated sufficient ingratitude or hostility, the donor could rescind the gift during the waiting period. Being uninvited from Thanksgiving by someone you'd just given a house to seemed like textbook ingratitude. Around 3 in the morning, I made coffee. Not the instant kind I usually drank, but the good beans I saved for occasions. No occasion now, I just needed the ritual, the familiar motion of grinding and brewing and pouring. I stood at my kitchen window watching Phoenix lights spread across the valley, holding the mug with both hands. Something had shifted inside me. Not broken. Breaking implied weakness, fragmentation, loss of function. This felt more like clarity, like wiping fog off glass to see what had always been there. My son didn't value me. His wife saw me as a resource to extract, not a person to include, and I'd enabled it year after year, mistaking their tolerance for affection. That ended now. The phone rang at 7, Michael's name lighting up the screen. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, 4. Established the new dynamic before I answered. Made him wait. "Dad, you awake?" "I am." "Look, about yesterday." His voice carried forced cheerfulness, the tone people use when they know they're wrong but won't admit it. "Patricia just wants a cozy family thing, you understand? She's particular about holidays. Jennifer thought it would be easier if—" "Stop." I kept my voice level, empty of emotion. A construction foreman's voice, the one that made workers pause mid-swing. "I understand perfectly. Your mother-in-law, who I've never met, doesn't want me in the house I just purchased for you. The house I signed papers on yesterday, and you agreed to this." Silence on his end. Then, "It's not like that. We'll do something with you later. Maybe the weekend after? Jennifer's already stressed about cooking for Patricia and—" "How much do you still owe me for the car, Michael?" "What?" The question threw him. Good. "The car. Dad, that's not—" "We're talking about Thanksgiving. $15,000, plus the $8,000 for temporary bill help, plus $12,000 for furniture. Should I continue?" "Those were gifts." Defensive now, voice rising. "You said we didn't need to." "I said many things." I looked at the spreadsheet I'd created, numbers in neat columns, dates precisely recorded. "I'm reconsidering them all. We'll talk soon." I ended the call before he could respond. The silence afterward felt clean. I opened my laptop and searched. Arizona law, revoke gift ingratitude. Then, contract attorney Phoenix. The screen filled with results. I clicked through websites, reading attorney bios, looking for someone who'd understand that this wasn't about money or property, or legal technicalities. This was about respect, about teaching a lesson that should have been learned years ago. By 9, I'd narrowed my search to 3 firms. By 10, I'd drafted an email to Harrison & Associates, the attorneys I'd used when selling Gray Construction. They knew me, knew I wasn't frivolous or vengeful, knew that when I said I needed something done, I had good reason. The email stayed brief, summarized the situation: house gift, immediate exclusion, desired to explore options for revoking the transfer, attached scanned copies of the signed documents, mentioned the 30-day window, requested urgent consultation. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The accordion file Jennifer had mocked. "Why do you keep every receipt? Are you hoarding paper now?" Sat on the corner of my desk. I pulled it close, flipped through years of documented generosity, wedding expenses, car loan paperwork, furniture receipts with Jennifer's signature on the delivery forms. Everything preserved, everything provable. She'd called it hoarding. I called it vindication. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Dad, please don't be upset. We can work this out." I didn't respond. Let him wonder. Let him sweat. Let him realize that the ATM had shut down, that the free ride had ended, that actions carried consequences even when you'd spent years protected from them. By noon, my inbox chimed. Harrison & Associates. "Mr. Gray, we can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. This matter requires immediate attention given the time frame involved." I typed my response. "I'll be there." Outside, the day had warmed into the low 70s. Perfect Arizona November weather. Neighbors decorated for Thanksgiving, hanging wreaths and setting out those ridiculous inflatable turkeys. Normal people preparing for normal holidays with families who wanted them present. I wasn't normal people anymore. I made a fresh pot of coffee, returned to my desk, and began organizing documents into categories. Loans never repaid, gifts never acknowledged, promises never kept. Each folder grew thick with evidence. Each page told the story of a father who'd given everything and received nothing except a text message uninviting him from the house he'd bought. By afternoon, I had an appointment scheduled. The 30-day window was closing, but I had time enough. Robert Chen's office occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower on Central Avenue, the kind of building where attorneys charged enough to afford conference rooms with views. I'd used Harrison and Associates when selling gray construction. They knew me as someone who didn't waste their time. Robert looked the same as 5 years ago. Sharp suit, reading glasses perched on his nose. That careful expression lawyers wear when they're deciding whether you're serious or delusional. I spread my documents across his mahogany conference table. The house transfer papers. The text message, enlarged and printed. 10 years of financial records, organized by date, amount, and broken promise. He read silently, making notes on his legal pad. The scratch of his pen filled the space between us. "Tell me about Arizona's gift revocation laws," I said. Robert tapped his pen against the pad. "You're talking about Section 25-211, gross ingratitude. A donor can revoke a gift if the recipient demonstrates conduct that would justify disinheritance. It's rarely invoked, but when it is," he gestured at my documents, "cases like this. Substantial gift, followed by immediate rejection or hostility. Being uninvited from Thanksgiving after purchasing someone a house, that qualifies? Textbook example." He pulled a statute book from his shelf, slid it across the desk with one finger marking the page. "The precedent is clear. The 30-day transfer window gives you legal standing. With this documentation," he gestured at the text message, "we filed today." I signed the revocation papers with the same pen I'd used 3 days earlier for the original documents. Different paperwork, same blue ink. The irony registered somewhere in my mind, but I didn't comment. Just signed my name and slid the papers back. "I want everything documented," I said. "I may need more from you soon." Robert's expression didn't change. "Understood?" Amanda Foster, the notary who'd handled the original transfer, filed the revocation with Maricopa County that afternoon. By morning, a certified letter was en route to Michael's workplace. 2 days later, I was in the parking garage beneath Robert's building, discussing a separate matter, when my phone buzzed. Michael's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice. Needed that moment to prepare. "Hello, Michael. What the—" His voice cracked, somewhere between rage and panic. "Dad, what is this? A revocation of gift? You can't do this. We've already told everyone. Jennifer's parents came to see the house. We posted pictures. People at work know." I leaned back against my truck. The concrete garage amplified his voice, made it echo. "You told everyone before it was officially yours," I said. "Poor planning." "This is insane. Over one dinner? You're destroying our future over one holiday." "No, Michael." I kept my voice level, empty of heat. "You did that when you chose her mother over your father. I'm just correcting my mistake." The silence stretched. I could hear breathing on his end, someone saying something in the background. Then Jennifer's voice, sharp and close. "Let me talk to him." Rustling sounds. She'd grabbed the phone. "You manipulative old man!" Jennifer's voice dripped venom. "After everything we've done for you, the visits, the calls, dealing with your constant expectations, you think money means you own us?" I pulled up the spreadsheet on my phone, read from the screen. "Everything you've done?" I kept my tone flat, mathematical. "Let me refresh your memory. $35,000 for a wedding I wasn't consulted on. $15,000 for a car you still haven't repaid. $8,000 in temporary help that became permanent. $12,000 in furniture, and a house you'll never live in. That's what I've done." "What exactly have you done?" We included you in our lives. That should be enough." "It wasn't." I disconnected before she could respond. The garage went quiet. Somewhere above me, traffic hummed on Central Avenue. Normal people driving to normal destinations. Their families probably intact, probably functional. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, engine off, feeling the emptiness where something used to be. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just absence, like a tooth pulled. You keep touching the gap with your tongue, confirming it's really gone. The house had been the opening move. Michael and Jennifer would scramble now, panic, maybe fight back. Patricia would advise them, poison them further against me. I needed to stay ahead. The letter I'd asked Robert to draft, the loan repayment demand, would arrive by the end of the week. The certified letter arrived on a Saturday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but I could picture the scene clearly enough. Jennifer signing for it, tearing open the envelope, her scream bringing Michael running from the shower. Robert had been thorough, every loan itemized, every check copied, every text message where Michael promised just temporary dad attached as evidence. The total came to $35,000, payment due within 60 days. I sat in my office that afternoon when Robert called to confirm delivery. "They received it," he said. "Signed for at 9:43 this morning." "Good. You sure about this, Stanley? It's aggressive. They'll feel cornered." "That's the point." He paused. "All right. Let me know when they contact you." They tried. My phone started buzzing that evening. Michael's name, over and over. I let every call go to voicemail, listened once to each message before deleting. The first message came at 7. "Dad, please, we can't pay $35,000 in 60 days. Our rent alone is $2,400 a month. Jennifer's student loans, the car payment on her Lexus, we're barely... Please, can we just talk? Face to face? No lawyers?" The second at 9. "You're punishing me for Jennifer's mother. That's not fair. I didn't want to uninvite you, but she insisted. And Jennifer was stressed about hosting, and I thought you'd understand." The third at 11. "Fine, don't answer. But you should know. Patricia says we should sue you. Emotional distress. Financial manipulation. We're getting a lawyer Monday morning." I deleted that one with particular satisfaction. Monday afternoon, Robert called again. "They consulted an attorney," he said. I could hear amusement in his voice. The lawyer apparently laughed them out of the office. "Your documentation is airtight. Every loan memorialized, every check labeled. They have no case." I expected as much. Patricia strikes me as someone who views courts as weapons rather than justice. "You know her?" "Never met her, but I know her type." Wednesday evening, I was making dinner when headlights swept across my living room window. I moved to the upstairs bedroom, looked down at the driveway. Michael's Honda sat there, engine running. I could see him through the windshield, hands on the wheel, staring at my front door. He didn't move for 5 minutes. 10. 20. At 40 minutes, he drove away. I went back downstairs and finished making dinner. Thursday, I met Thomas Wright at a diner off the I-10. Thomas had worked for Gray Construction for 15 years, left when I sold the business to start his own contracting operation. Good man, solid worker. He bowled in the same league as Michael. We sat in a booth by the window, coffee steaming between us. "Ran into your son last week," Thomas said. He looked uncomfortable. "At Costco. He was with Jennifer and an older woman. Her mother, I guess. Patricia. Yeah. Anyway, they were fighting. Jennifer was really letting him have it about something. Michael looked terrible, Stan. Exhausted." I sipped my coffee. "What were they saying?" "Jennifer was loud enough for half the store to hear. Something about him needing to control his father. Fix this mess. Grow a spine." The mother was nodding along, adding comments. "Called you some pretty harsh names." "Such as?" Thomas shifted. "Miser, manipulator, control freak. Look, I don't want to repeat all of it, but she was vicious. Michael just stood there, taking it." "Interesting." I set down my cup. "The woman who convinced my son to exclude me from Thanksgiving calls me manipulative. The irony isn't lost on me." Thomas studied my face. "What's going on, Stan? Michael said something about a house? I bought them one. Changed my mind. That simple? That simple." He didn't push further. We finished our coffee, talking about other things. His business, mutual acquaintances, the son's terrible season. Normal conversation, normal topics. But Thomas's words stayed with me. Patricia calling me names didn't surprise me. Manipulators always project their own tactics onto others. But learning she'd been poisoning Jennifer against me, perhaps for months or years, that shifted my understanding. I'd thought Jennifer was the problem. Maybe I'd been looking at the wrong woman. Back home, I opened a new tab in my spreadsheet. Phase 2, Collection Timeline. marked the 60-day deadline, added contingency plans for when they inevitably failed to pay. But I also opened a blank document and typed a name at the top, Patricia Morrison. I needed to understand who was really pulling the strings in my son's marriage. Her age, probably late 50s. Her background, her finances, her history. People who manipulate that effectively usually have practice. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made a decision. I needed to understand exactly who was pulling the strings in my son's marriage. The coffee shop in Tempe had the usual afternoon crowd. Students hunched over laptops, retirees reading newspapers, baristas calling out complicated drink orders. I sat in the back corner, away from windows, and watched the private investigator walk through the door exactly on time. Robert Chen had recommended him. Discreet, thorough, doesn't ask questions you don't want to answer. The investigator, Marcus, no last name offered, slid a manila folder across the table. Didn't order coffee, didn't make small talk. Patricia Morrison, he said, 58, divorced 2019, operated a boutique clothing store in Chandler called Morrison's Elegance, failed in 2023. I opened the folder. The first page showed a business closure notice, followed by supplier invoices stamped unpaid in red ink. She owes $38,000 to various suppliers. Another $22,000 on personal credit cards. She was evicted from her condo in Chandler in August 2023. Marcus tapped a document. She's been living with your son's wife for 18 months, rent-free. I flipped through bank statements, credit reports, eviction records. The financial collapse laid out like an autopsy. These are text messages. Marcus indicated a stack of screenshots, obtained legally through a shared cloud account Jennifer gave her access to. They go back 2 years. I read the first one, dated 6 months after Patricia moved in. Your FIL is loaded. Make him pay for the house. He's retired. What else is his money for? Another, from last Christmas. Don't let him control you with his money. Demand what you deserve. Old men need to be useful, or what's the point? I read each message twice. My jaw ached from clenching. The financial pressure she's under explains her behavior, Marcus said. She needs them financially, which means she needs to control the relationship. Can't have you interfering with her meal ticket. You found conversations where she advised Jennifer to demand the house from me? Multiple over 2 years. Make him pay? He owes you. Don't let him control you with his money. Standard manipulation tactics. She positioned you as the enemy before you ever did anything. I closed the folder, paid Marcus his fee plus a bonus for thoroughness, drove home with the folder on my passenger seat, feeling the weight of validation settle over me like armor. That evening I sent 2 text messages to Sarah, my late wife's sister. Family dinner. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Need to discuss Michael. To David, her brother. Same. Neither asked questions, just replied, yes. I spent Monday cleaning a house that didn't need cleaning. Vacuumed carpets, wiped counters, scrubbed the kitchen sink until it gleamed. Needed the motion, the routine, something to occupy my hands while my mind organized the presentation. Tuesday at 6, Sarah arrived first. She'd watched Michael grow up, babysat him when my wife and I went to construction conferences, taught him to ride a bike when I was working 18-hour days. Her hug lasted longer than usual. What's this about, Stan? Wait for David. He arrived 10 minutes later, still in his work clothes, smelling like sawdust and machine oil. We'd built my first workshop together 30 years ago, stayed friends through my wife's illness and death. He clasped my shoulder without speaking. I served pot roast, simple, the kind my wife used to make. We ate without much conversation. Only after plates were cleared did I open my laptop. I need to show you something. For the next hour, I laid it out. The house gift, the text message excluding me from Thanksgiving, the revocation, the loan demand, and then Patricia's report, bankruptcy, parasitic living situation, 2 years of documented manipulation. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, not sadness, fury. Stanley, I knew Jennifer had changed toward you, but I didn't realize Patricia has been poisoning her against you this whole time, while living off them. For 2 years, apparently. The investigator found texts going back to when she moved in. She convinced Jennifer I was trying to control them with money. Ironic, considering her motivation. David stood by the window, holding pages of the report with hands that shook slightly. Michael needs to know about this, he said quietly. His own mother-in-law has been manipulating his wife against you while freeloading. Does he know? I doubt it. Patricia works in shadows. But he's about to find out, when family starts asking questions. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling him right now. She walked to the living room. I heard her voice, controlled at first, then rising. Michael, it's Aunt Sarah. Your father invited David and me over tonight. He showed us everything, the house, the money, Patricia's debts, the text messages. How could you exclude him from Thanksgiving? After everything he's done? After what your mother would have wanted? Michael's voice came through faintly, defensive. Sarah cut him off. Jennifer's mother is a manipulator with $60,000 in debt who's been living off your wife for 2 years. Your father documented everything. The whole family knows now, Michael. We're all ashamed of how you've treated him. She made 2 more calls that night, her daughter, David's son. By morning, the extended family network was buzzing. Over the next 3 days, my phone stayed quiet. But Thomas Wright sent screenshots. Cousin Jennifer on Mom's side texting Michael, "We all know what you did to Uncle Stan." Aunt Margaret removing Jennifer from the family Facebook group. Old photos from past Thanksgivings being reposted with pointed captions. Remember when family actually meant something? I saved each screenshot to my documentation folder. Didn't smile, didn't gloat. Just watched the social pressure build like water behind a dam. Thursday evening, Thomas called. Saw your daughter-in-law at Target. She looked like she'd been crying. Turned around and walked out when she spotted me in the electronics section. Patricia still living with them? According to Michael, yeah. He mentioned it at bowling last night. Said something about his mother-in-law not understanding boundaries. The cracks were showing. Friday morning, my phone rang. Sarah. Michael called me back. He was different, quieter. Asked if I really believed he'd treated you badly. I told him yes, absolutely, and your mother would be heartbroken. He didn't argue. Just hung up. The family knew the truth now, but truth doesn't pay debts. In 3 weeks, the deadline would arrive, and I wondered what Michael would sacrifice first. The rejection letters arrived like verdicts. Chase Bank. Unfortunately, your debt-to-income ratio exceeds our lending guidelines. Wells Fargo. Your application cannot be approved at this time due to insufficient collateral and recent credit inquiries. Bank of America. We are unable to extend credit based on current financial obligations. I didn't see these letters, but Thomas did. He'd bumped into Jennifer at a coffee shop, watched her sit alone at a table covered in paperwork, her phone face down beside a calculator that displayed numbers she kept re-entering as if different inputs might produce different mathematics. Thomas texted me a photo from across the room. I could see the bank letterhead, the defeated slope of her shoulders. 3 weeks had passed since the family dinner. The 60-day deadline for the loan repayment loomed 5 days away. Michael and Jennifer had $4,800 in savings. They needed $35,000. The math murdered hope. Thursday evening, I learned this later from multiple sources, Jennifer sat at their dining table with every bill, every statement, every shred of financial documentation they owned. Michael stood behind her, watching her calculate their way out of a problem that had no mathematical solution. The bank said no. Jennifer's voice was brittle with panic. Again, that's 3 banks, Michael. Our debt to income is too high. They won't touch us. We have $4,800 in savings and need $35,000 in 7 days. What are we going to do? Sell the car, Michael said. His voice sounded hollow, rehearsed. List the furniture. Borrow from your parents. Something. My parents already think we're failures, and your father, is destroying us. Can't you do something? Anything? Patricia sat in the living room, pretending not to listen. She'd been making phone calls all day, reaching out to friends she claimed could help. Jennifer and Michael had listened to each call end with excuses and apologies. Now Patricia tried again, dialing someone named Linda. I know I still owe you from last year, but this is different. No, I understand. Okay, goodbye. She hung up, turned to Jennifer with a forced smile. She can't help right now, but I have other friends. No, you don't. Jennifer's voice broke. You have debts and excuses. You promised you could help us. You said family sticks together. You told me to stand up to Stanley, and now we're drowning because I listened to you. I was protecting you from his manipulation. He uses money to control people. Michael spoke quietly, dangerously. No, Patricia, you do. You've been living here rent-free for 18 months. You convinced Jennifer to demand things from my father, while you contributed nothing. I want you gone by tomorrow. The silence that followed felt geological. You can't throw me out. I'm Jennifer's mother. Jennifer stood up from the table. Michael's right. Pack your things. Patricia left Saturday morning. No goodbyes, just the click of the door and the weight of absence. By then, Jennifer had already posted her Lexus on every sales platform she could find. Facebook Marketplace, AutoTrader, Craigslist. The listing price, $26,000, $4,000 below market value. Desperation has a smell. Buyers recognize it. Tuesday afternoon, I was at my desk reviewing contracts when I glanced out the window. Michael's Honda sat in the company parking lot. I checked the time. 2:47 p.m. I returned to my work, took 3 phone calls, reviewed 2 bids, made notes for Thursday's meeting. At 5:30, I gathered my things and headed to the parking lot. Michael's car was still there. He got out when he saw me, walked toward my truck with the posture of someone who'd already lost. Dad, please, just hear me. We communicate through Robert now, Michael. You know that. We can't get the money. His voice cracked. The bank said no. We're selling Jennifer's car, selling furniture, but we'll still be short. Can we work out payments? A plan? Something? I didn't get out of my truck. Kept the window down, engine running. You had 60 days. You chose to spend 3 weeks panicking instead of acting. The deadline is Friday. Full payment or Robert files and suit Monday morning. Those are your options. I'm your son? The words hung between us. I looked at him. Thinner than a month ago, exhausted, trapped. You were my son when you excluded me from Thanksgiving, I said. Each word came out measured, cold. You were my son when you let Patricia manipulate your wife against me. You were my son when you spent 10 years treating me like an ATM. Now you're a debtor. Pay what you owe. I rolled up the window, drove away. In my rearview mirror, Michael stood in the parking lot, alone. That evening, Thomas called. Saw Michael and Jennifer at the used car lot on Mill Avenue. She was crying while they negotiated trade-in value. Manager was lowballing them. $15,000 for a Lexus worth $28,000. Desperation pricing. They took it. Did they reach the full amount? Not even close. Maybe $22,000 total with furniture sales. They're still $13,000 short with 2 days left. Then they'll need to decide what matters more, pride or consequences. Friday morning arrived, deadline day. I sat at my desk, phone on speaker with Robert Chen, waiting to see if the wire transfer would hit my account by 5 p.m. They might not make it, Robert said. You prepared for litigation? I'm prepared for whatever happens. At 3:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a bank notification. The transfer had arrived. $30,000. Not the full amount, but enough to show they'd bled themselves dry trying. Friday evening, 6 o'clock, I sat at my desk staring at the bank notification. $30,000 received. 3:47 p.m. 5,000 short. Michael's email had arrived minutes after the transfer, explaining they needed 30 days for the remaining balance, promising full payment. The words read like a hostage negotiation, desperate, careful, aware of consequences. I called Robert. They sent 30,000, I said, 5 short. Michael's email says they need 30 days for the remainder. Your options. Accept as settlement. Demand immediate payment of balance. Or create a formal loan agreement for the shortfall. Option 3. Formal loan agreement. 8% annual interest. Monthly installments. 12 months. Make it legal. Make it official. Make it impossible to ignore. Robert paused. That's punitive, Stanley. The interest alone is appropriate for unsecured debt to a borrower with proven poor credit judgment. Drafted. The loan agreement arrived in my inbox Sunday morning. I read every clause, signed it electronically, and forwarded it to Michael without comment. No explanatory email, no softening language, just the contract, cold and binding. What I didn't see, but learned later from Thomas, was how they'd scraped together that $30,000. Jennifer's parents had arrived Thursday with a cashier's check. Her father set it on the counter without embracing his daughter, his face carved from granite. The disappointment radiated like heat from pavement. 10,000, he'd said. That's what we can spare without damaging our retirement. You'll repay it within 2 years. 5% interest. Monthly installments. Understood? Jennifer barely whispered. Dad, I don't want to hear it. Your mother and I raised you better than this. Treating family like ATMs. Listening to Patricia's poison. I'm ashamed, Jennifer. Truly ashamed. They'd borrowed another 5,000 from friends, a couple from Jennifer's marketing firm. Brian had insisted on a promissory note, the transaction transforming friendship into business. Nothing personal, he'd told Michael. Just protecting myself. Sign at the bottom. Michael signed, watched another relationship die in the space between trust and documentation. The Lexus sale had brought 15,000, furniture another 2,000, every CD cashed, every safety net shredded. They'd bled themselves dry and still came up short. Sunday morning, the Patricia situation detonated. Jennifer found her mother's suitcase in the hallway, and something snapped. The screaming match lasted 20 minutes. Accusations flew like shrapnel. Broken promises, empty guarantees. 2 years of manipulation disguised as maternal concern. You're throwing me out? Patricia's voice hit that dangerous pitch. After everything I've done for you, I'm your mother. Everything you've done? Jennifer's exhaustion had transformed into something sharp. You moved in rent-free, maxed out my patience, turned me against Stanley, and when we needed help, you promised money you didn't have. You didn't protect me. You used me. Get out. Patricia grabbed her suitcase, paused at the door. You'll end up alone and broken, just like your father-in-law. That's what happens to ungrateful children. Jennifer slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. Late Sunday night, Michael and Jennifer sat in their stripped-down living room. Empty wall where the console table had been, missing armchair, just a couch and coffee table remaining, furniture as metaphor. My father was right, you know, Michael said quietly, about Patricia, about us taking advantage, about being treated like a wallet instead of family. I've known it for a while, but I didn't want to admit it. Jennifer looked at him, too tired for argument. So what do we do? I don't know. Apologizing feels hollow after what we've done. Maybe we just live with it, pay our debts, prove we're better than this. Are we, though, better than this? Michael had no answer, just silence filling the space where certainty used to live. Monday at 11 p.m., the DocuSign notification arrived on Michael's phone. He opened it at his kitchen table, hand shaking slightly as he scrolled through legal language that formalized his failure. 8% interest, monthly payments of $450, 12 months. Every clause a reminder that he wasn't a son receiving help. He was a debtor fulfilling obligations. He signed, watched the confirmation screen appear, felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of family. Tuesday morning, I received the signed agreement, opened it, reviewed the signature, saved it to my legal documents folder. Michael Gray was now contractually obligated to pay me $450 monthly for 12 months. Not as son to father, but as debtor to creditor. The transformation was complete. The first payment would be due in 30 days. I set a calendar reminder and wondered if he'd actually make it, or if I'd need to pursue collection. Either way, the lesson was taught. The notification arrived on a Tuesday morning in early December. Payment received, $450, final installment. I marked the spreadsheet, cell green. Debt satisfied, ledger balanced. The victory felt hollow, like winning an argument with someone who'd stopped listening. 6 weeks had passed since Michael signed the loan agreement. 6 weeks of monthly payments arriving exactly on schedule, each one automatic, impersonal, transactional. The money mattered less than what it represented. A son paying his father back like a bank, obligation replacing relationship. Thomas had been keeping me informed without my asking. Small observations, casual mentions. Saw your son and daughter-in-law at Target yesterday, he'd said during a phone call the week before. Stan, they looked rough, buying generic everything. Jennifer was comparing prices on pasta sauce. Michael's lost weight, stress weight, not healthy weight. The fancy lifestyle is gone. That's what happens when you live beyond your means and lose your financial backup, I'd said. They're learning. You planning to reach out? Holidays coming up and all. When people learn lessons the hard way, interrupting the lesson doesn't help. They need to sit with it. I'd meant it, still did, but something about that final payment notification sat differently in my chest. The consequences had spread beyond just Michael and Jennifer. Thomas mentioned that word had gotten around. Small community dynamics in the Phoenix metro area, everyone knowing someone who knew someone. Michael's younger colleague had apparently asked him about family trouble, that careful tone people use when they know more than they're saying. Michael's reputation had shifted. No longer the successful young manager with the generous father. Now he was the guy who'd screwed over his dad, the one who couldn't manage his finances, the cautionary tale. Wednesday afternoon, a certified letter arrived. I signed for it, recognized the return address immediately. Patricia Morrison, 3 pages, aggressive capital letters, wild accusations. Stanley Gray has engaged in financial elder abuse by using his wealth to coerce and manipulate my daughter and son-in-law into submission through predatory lending practices. She threatened to report me to Adult Protective Services, the Attorney General, anyone who would listen. I called Robert, read him selected passages. Adult Protective Services, I said, for a 62-year-old man protecting himself from freeloading relatives. That's creative. Robert's laugh carried professional disdain. I'm drafting a cease and desist that'll make her think twice. Her own bankruptcy and fraud history undermines any credibility she thinks she has. Want me to mention potential defamation claims? Mention everything. Make it clear that continued contact will have legal consequences. I'm done with the Morrison family drama. I filed Patricia's letter in a folder labeled Legal Documentation, Morrison Harassment, and forgot about it. She was noise, irrelevant to the larger story. Thursday evening, my inbox chimed. Email from Michael sent at 8:47 p.m. After hours, private moment, subject line, no excuses. I opened it. Dad, I understand we were wrong. Not just about Thanksgiving, but about everything. The years of taking without appreciating, treating you like an obligation instead of a person, letting Jennifer and Patricia influence me against my better judgment. I don't know if I can fix this, but I want to try. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve better than the son I've been. Michael, I read it 3 times, looked at the timestamp, noticed what wasn't there. No requests, no justifications, no attempts to minimize his actions, just acknowledgement, raw and plain. I closed my laptop and walked away. Friday, I opened a reply draft, typed 5 different versions. Forgiveness, continued coldness, cautious acceptance, conditional reconciliation, complete rejection. Saved all 5 without sending any. Let silence do its work. Saturday, Thomas sent me Facebook screenshots. A holiday post from Jennifer's account, background visible. Sparse apartment, cheap artificial tree, discount decorations. The visual poverty of consequences. I saved the images to my documentation folder. Evidence of lesson learned. Sunday, I opened Michael's email again. Read it for the 10th time. Studied the sentence structure, the word choice, the absence of manipulation. You deserve better than the son I've been. 3 years too late, but at least he finally saw it. Monday morning, I sat at my desk with the cursor blinking in an empty reply field. 5 draft responses waited in my documents folder, each one a different path forward, or backward, or nowhere at all. I hadn't decided which Michael deserved, or which I needed to send. The email sat unanswered for 3 days while I decided whether redemption was something earned or given. On the 4th day, I closed my laptop and drove somewhere I hadn't been in months. I needed to think, and thinking required different surroundings. The mountain overlook north of Cave Creek offered what my office couldn't: silence without walls, space without technology, the kind of emptiness that lets clarity form like ice crystals in winter air. I sat on my truck's tailgate for 3 hours, Michael's email loaded on my phone. Read it between long stretches of staring at the Sonoran desert landscape stretching toward mountains that didn't care about family drama or financial revenge. The question wasn't whether Michael deserved forgiveness. I knew forgiveness was something you do for yourself, not the other person. But engaging with his transformation risked reopening wounds that had finally started forming protective scar tissue. You deserve better than the son I've been. I read the line again. Studied the absence of excuses, the lack of requests. Just acknowledgement, raw and plain. A hawk circled overhead, hunting. Patient, strategic, waiting for the right moment. I closed my phone and drove back to Phoenix. 2 weeks passed. I didn't respond to Michael's email. Let him sit with uncertainty the way I'd sat with exclusion, humiliation, betrayal. Tuesday afternoon, I was at my construction office reviewing bid proposals when movement in the parking lot caught my eye. Michael's Honda pulled into a spot at 2:15, engine shut off, windows up. He didn't get out, just sat there. I watched from my second-floor window for 20 minutes, observed his body language, head down, hands clasped, no phone scrolling, just waiting with the patience of someone who had nothing left to lose. I had a choice: ignore him, leave via the back exit, go home, or face the conversation that had been building since that Thanksgiving text message. The hawk had found its moment. I descended the stairs slowly, stopped at the conference room, propped the door open, conversation yes, privacy no, professional distance maintained, then walked to the building entrance. Michael stood when I appeared in the lobby, looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. The confidence and entitlement that used to armor him had been stripped away like paint from old furniture, revealing raw wood underneath. "Dad," his voice carried uncertainty. "Thank you for not turning me away. I know I don't deserve—" Conference room, 5 minutes. We walked without words, footsteps echoing on tile. I sat across the table, not at the head, and gestured for him to speak first, placing the burden of opening on the person who broke things. "I don't know where to start." Michael's hands twisted together. "I've practiced this 100 times, but now, I'm just going to say it. I used you. For years. I treated you like an ATM instead of a person, let Jennifer and Patricia poison my perspective, and convinced myself it was normal, because you never complained. I let you be hurt, excluded, disrespected, and I didn't defend you because it was easier not to." I stayed quiet, let silence pull more truth from him. The house. That should have been a moment of gratitude, of celebration. Instead, I let Patricia dictate who was welcome at a table you paid for. I chose a manipulative woman I barely knew over the man who raised me. And when you revoked it, when you demanded repayment, I was angry, furious, because I'd convinced myself I deserved your money without your respect. His voice cracked. I was wrong. About everything. "What changed?" I asked. "The consequences or the understanding?" Tears came then. Real ones. The kind you can't fake. Both. At first it was just panic. The money, the house, the humiliation. But somewhere in selling our car, borrowing from friends, seeing you refuse to even talk to me, I realized you weren't punishing me. You were showing me the truth I'd been avoiding. That I'd become someone my mother would be ashamed of. Someone you had every right to walk away from. I leaned forward slightly. "You're my son, Michael. I've never stopped loving you. Even when I revoked the house, demanded repayment, refused your calls. That was love, not cruelty. Letting you continue using me would have been cruelty. To both of us. Can you forgive me?" The question hung between us like smoke. "Eventually, maybe," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. Trust isn't rebuilt with apologies. It's rebuilt with consistent actions over time. You want a relationship with me? Earn it. Show me, month after month, that you've changed. No grand gestures, no dramatic promises, just steady, respectful behavior." Michael nodded, wiping his eyes. "I understand. And Jennifer. She wants to apologize too. She's been going to counseling with me. We're working on everything. The entitlement, the manipulation, the damage Patricia did. She knows she played a huge role in this. I'm glad you're getting help, but I need you to understand something. This is your last chance. I'm 62 years old. I don't have time for cycles of betrayal and reconciliation. If this happens again, if you or Jennifer treat me as less than I deserve, I'm done. Permanently. No dramatic exit, no explanations. Just boundaries that don't bend. It won't happen again." Michael's voice carried firmness I hadn't heard in years. "I swear on everything I have left, which isn't much, that I'll prove I'm worth having as a son." I stood, extended my hand for a handshake, not a hug. "Then let's start small. Coffee next week, public place, 1 hour. We'll see how it goes." Michael took my hand, gratitude flooding his face. Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me completely. I paused at the door. I gave up on the son you were. I'm meeting the son you're trying to become. Don't disappoint me again. I watched him walk to his modest Honda, shoulders less burdened than when he'd arrived. The 5-minute conversation had stretched to 20, but I didn't regret the time. Coffee next week would be the test. Whether he showed up, how he acted, what he said when there was no crisis forcing honesty. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope exactly, but possibility. And that was enough for now. 3 weeks of gradual reconnection. 2 coffee meetings, both at public cafes, both exactly 1 hour, both surprisingly comfortable. One lunch where Michael talked about counseling and Jennifer talked about recognizing her mother's manipulation tactics. Small steps, measured progress. Now this, dinner at their apartment. Michael's invitation, Jennifer's cooking, 3 people only. Patricia explicitly excluded. The apartment complex looked worn in evening light, the parking lot dotted with older vehicles. Michael's modest Honda occupied spot 217. No premium covered parking, no Lexus. I climbed the exterior stairs carrying nothing. No wine, no flowers, no gifts. This wasn't celebration, but cautious détente. Jennifer answered before I knocked, watching through the peephole. Stanley, genuine warmth, visible nervousness. Thank you for coming. I know, this isn't easy for you. Please come in. The apartment interior told the story of consequences. IKEA furniture where designer pieces used to stand. Blank walls where expensive art had hung. A folding dining table set for 3 with mismatched plates that spoke to budget shopping and humility, learned through necessity. It's not fancy, Dad. Michael set down a serving dish. We're adjusting to different circumstances. But the company's what matters, right? Fancy never mattered to me, I said. Respect did. Dinner was simple. Roasted chicken, vegetables, rice. Jennifer's hands shook slightly serving it, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing this meal represented possible redemption or final failure. Midway through, Jennifer set down her fork. Stanley, I need to say something I should have said months ago. I'm sorry. Not just for the Thanksgiving exclusion, though that was inexcusable, but for years of taking advantage of your generosity. I let my mother poison my perspective, convince myself you were controlling when really you were just being a father who loved his son. I treated your gifts as obligations, your help as entitlement, and your presence as inconvenient. I was wrong, and I'm ashamed of the person I became. I watched her eyes, her body language, testing for rehearsed performance versus genuine emotion. What changed, Jennifer? The consequences or your understanding? Both. No hesitation. I won't pretend losing everything was some spiritual awakening. It was terrifying and humiliating. But somewhere in that fear, I had to look at who I'd become. The counseling helped. Michael helped. Seeing Patricia's manipulation from outside her influence helped. I realized I'd traded your respect for her approval, and her approval was worthless. Michael reached for Jennifer's hand. Dad, you taught me something these past months that I should have learned as a kid. Strength isn't just providing for people. Sometimes it's refusing to. You showed dignity by walking away from people who didn't value you. I want to be that kind of strong. I set down my fork, gave them complete attention. I appreciate the words, both of you, but I need you to understand something clearly. This is your last opportunity. I'm 62. I don't have 20 years to see if you've really changed. I have maybe, if I'm lucky, 20 good years left. I won't spend them being used, manipulated, or disrespected. I love you both. Yes, Jennifer, even you. Because you're my son's wife and you're working on yourself. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. If this happens again, if either of you falls back into old patterns, I'm done. No drama, no arguments, just boundaries that don't bend. They stayed silent for 30 seconds, digesting the weight of my words rather than immediately responding with promises. That silence convinced me more than any reassurance could have. We understand, Jennifer finally said. You shouldn't have to say this at all, but we've earned the warning. You'll see it, Dad, Michael added, not in words, but in actions. We're going to prove we're worth having in your life. I'm here tonight because I want to believe that. Keep showing me. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. Michael asked what I'd been doing with my time now that I wasn't managing their chaos. Actually, I bought property. Small cabin in the mountains near Prescott. Nothing fancy, just a place to get away. I'm learning to spend time with people who value me, which turns out to be a shorter list than I thought. But quality over quantity. Jennifer's interest seemed genuine. That sounds perfect for you. Private, peaceful. Would you ever invite us up there? Maybe. Someday, if we get there. I was honest with them. It's a place for people I trust, and trust is still being rebuilt. But it's possible. That's more than I could have said 2 months ago. At the door, Michael extended his hand. Same time next month? Jennifer makes a good pot roast. I shook his hand, not hugging yet. Next month, we'll see how it goes. One dinner at a time. Thank you for giving us this chance, Jennifer said. We won't waste it. See that you don't? I drove home through quiet Phoenix streets. Windows down, January air cool against my face. The revenge had served its purpose. Not destroying them, but teaching consequences. Restoring my dignity. Establishing boundaries that protected me. Robert had helped me update my will the week before. Michael remained my heir, but with trust conditions and protections ensuring no repeat of exploitation. The cabin purchase had finalized yesterday. My personal refuge, invitation-only space representing reclaimed autonomy. Regular but measured contact would continue. Monthly dinners, occasional coffee, rebuilding without pressure or financial entanglement. Patricia remained permanently excluded. Jennifer maintained no contact, and she'd become irrelevant to our lives. I didn't feel triumph, just peace. Not because of revenge, but because of restored dignity. I'd learned to set boundaries, to value myself enough to walk away from disrespect, to build a life on my terms. The mountain cabin waited for the weekend after next. My space, my rules, my peace. Michael and Jennifer would have to earn an invitation there, but tonight showed they might actually deserve one eventually. I'd learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes love means walking away, and dignity means deciding who walks back. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.